compliance, audit, investigations, and the other functions that you either lead or deal with on a regular basis, all of these processes also produce a lot of data for you, risk data. Today, unfortunately, in many organizations, that's very siloed. That data is sitting often in separate places, an investigation system, a gifts registry, a conflict SharePoint. Takes a lot of manual pulling and joining of that data. So how do you each think about that side of the equation, taking digital transformation and leveraging it to help you do your job from a risk management perspective better? Maybe Natalia, maybe we can start with you this time.
Sure. So I definitely still consider myself, I think forever will be a novice at how we think about data and the myriad of ways in which we can leverage data. I think I'll just share, I've learned the value that there's no one way. And, to not be, what's the saying? Good be the enemy of the perfect, or however it goes. In other words, I don't have to access every single system. Nobody's data is perfectly clean. And so looking at the economies of opportunity, what is achievable, going after, it's okay to start with a quick, small win and test that viability on what kind of insights that data pool might give you, and then make assessments on scaling up. I'm currently in an organization, my ABB family, with a very diverse system landscape. And that might provoke someone coming in to say, how do I approach this from a digitization perspective? I would say it's still achievable. Identifying segregation, identifying system pooling opportunities, identifying technologies in which to plug things together on the back of an 8+ year investment on an enterprise data analytics team, I'd say you can still make a highly decentralized environment opportunistically work for purposes of building an analytics portfolio for the business, including for integrity.
Yeah, again, Natalia, goes to your whole point of starting with that value add analysis of where are the, I guess, lowest hanging fruit of the highest value, and maybe starting from there and phasing those things in with pilots and things like that. So I don't know, Mauricio, Will, do either of you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll add, and it's funny because not funny, but Natalia talks about the decentralization of her organization, and we fortunately, or at least people keep telling me that I'm fortunate that I don't have to deal with a decentralized system of databases. I'm still not convinced that I don't have to worry about that. I get that there are different challenges between the two. The reality for me, and I've said this on many occasions, is data can be very useful and it can be very dangerous, depending on how you deploy your analytics tools, why you're collecting it, what you're doing with it, and how you work with that data. And I think for many organizations, that question comes up repeatedly on, what do I want to do with it? And to me, that's the critical question. And Natalia is absolutely right, is that you can go for those small wins. You can find areas where there's value add in the short term and build on that. And to me, that's critical. And coming into the conversation and analysis on, almost going back to the bureaucratic process question we had before is, okay, here is a process that I have that's very manually focused, that takes a lot of hours to work through, and I'm not necessarily seeing the immediate results. Where can I use data in that process to try to A, get better results, B, make it more efficient, and C, overall better protect the organization and lower the risk to the company? And that's where we're focused, right? Where are there areas where we can plug data analytics tools in a particular process, a particular workflow, to modify and change how we go about risk analysis, risk tiering, triaging, and addressing those risks, as opposed to attempting to boil the ocean. And I think it's very hard to not want to boil the ocean when you're presented with tools that can give you everything. Well, but if you can't do much with everything, in my opinion, you're going backwards. So find those areas where you can deploy and get those quick wins and work on your efficiency and everything else all at the same time.
Yeah, great. Will, anything further from you?
You know, I think Mauricio said that perfectly well, is boiling the ocean and the dangerous and the benefit of data. I think one of the worst things you could do is collect all this data, have an issue, and then have a regulator or another body come in and say, but you had all this data. Why didn't you do something with it? Because you lack the tools, you lack the understanding to action on it. So I think in that regard, there's a big partnership with the business, and then there's a very surgical and tactical level execution and the mission and the values of the compliance function. What do we need to accomplish? Because, you know, I had an old commander that used to say, and it drove me nuts, but it makes sense, is the juice worth the squeeze? So you can run around and collect all these things and get all this sort of stuff, but if you're not putting it to meaningful use, what's the point? Why are you doing it? So I think that's where it falls back, is to have very structured, very codified, this is the mission and vision of what we're doing with this, and this is how we do it. And that will help shape how you partner with your business units to figure out what data needs to protect the company, what data is needed to help drive the business forward. And it'll also give you a roadmap and a game plan of how to work things. And that's not to say that there won't be roadblocks or headaches or things of that nature, but it'll give you that kind of focus versus having 42 different systems where you're pulling all this information in, and now you're left with all this data, but you don't know how to connect it. And I think you end up with the correlation versus causation, you know, the ice cream model, whereas murders go up in the summer, so do ice cream sales. So ipso facto, ice cream causes murders. If you're not surgical on your data, that's what it's going to look like. So you need to be very prescriptive and have a tactical level focus, and get those quick wins that really move the business forward without getting overwhelmed. And to Mauricio's point, attempting to boil the ocean just because you have the ability to do that.